September 1991. I wake up in the wee hours of the morning to loud sounds and howling. I turn over to see my sister, who's also waking up, and I ask her, "Are they laughing or are they crying?" She listens for a bit and she tells me, "They're crying." We stay still in bed until the morning light fills in the room. We gather the courage to get out of bed in our pajamas, me of 7, her of 11, and we enter the living room. Filled with people who we know and we don't know, the main door is open and people are coming and going as they please, and in the center of it all is my mom. But my mom had to be in the hospital with my father, who just had an open heart surgery. What's she doing here? Oblivious to everything and us too, and bawling her eyes out. And I turned around and I looked at my sister and I said, "What happened?" And she said, "Abu died." I nodded my head and I thought, okay, but when's he coming back? That is a question I chased after for years. And when I finally understood death, and that he was the finality of him never coming back, and also that it wasn't a choice he had made to leave us, is when grief came to front stage and enveloped me. And the bigger I grew, the bigger my grief grew. But I didn't know how to address it because we never talked about my dad in my family. So the best thing to do was run. So in running from grief, I just threw myself into everything, into my education, my extracurricular activities, work, anything and everything that made me not think. In the middle of a very busy day at work, I heard somebody in passing say, "Oh, I got a text from my dad." And it just stopped me in my tracks. It was the first time I realized I would never get a text from my dad. I had never sent him an email. I didn't have the opportunity to save his number in my phone. I never saw the words "Abu calling," and I never would. You know, he loved technology. He was such a gadget guy. He had the latest cameras. He probably would have been first in line for a BlackBerry or something. Like, that was his life. So I went to the bathroom and I started to cry. And I knew that me running away had to stop, and grief always following me had to stop. So I looked at grief in the eye and said, "What do you need from me?" And grief asked me the same question, "What do you need from me?" And I told it, "I need you to leave me alone." But grief said, "I need you to feel me and hear me. And also I need a place to live, so I need you to hold me." And so an agreement was drawn between grief and I, in which I would house grief until death do us part. And I would acknowledge grief, give it full visitation rights, and eventually, grief would stop visiting me so frequently. And so, grief grew smaller and smaller, and the visits grew more and more infrequent until September.